Welcome back. This is the second domain focused on logging and monitoring. It's going to be about 20% of the total number of questions in your exam. And you're going to talk about elements such as how to make sure you can design and implement security monitoring and alerting, how to troubleshoot anything dealing with monitors and alerts, how to design and implement your logging solution, and finally, troubleshooting those logging solutions. So let's dive on into monitoring on AWS. There are three primary tools we'll talk about here. We're going to talk about CloudWatch, Config, and CloudTrail. Let's start with Amazon CloudWatch. This is your real-time monitoring of all the resources and applications you're running on AWS. AWS provides out of the box a number of built-in monitors that are available to you. You also can use CloudWatch to track your own custom metrics by simply importing that data into CloudWatch, giving you single pane of glass information. Also, CloudWatch can be used to collect and process log files, as well as respond with notifications in the event that CloudWatch finds itself in an alarm state. AWS Config is about understanding your inventory, configuration history, and especially any changes that happen in your system, as well as being able to notify you in the event of any of these changes, how they might affect certain rules that you put in play. These rules can also be used as part of config rules to roll back or to affect certain results that you need at the end. AWS Config continuously captures these details that are associated with your resources. This is especially useful when you're dealing with compliance monitoring. You want to know if anyone made any changes, what those changes were. Config is going to give those to you in easily digestible pieces of information. The information from Config comes from AWS CloudTrail, which is going to, from a very granular point of view, know each API call that was executed, who executed it, when was it executed, what was the result. Those are compiled and presented in Config for easy to understand consumable elements. Additional services you'll want to be comfortable with include AWS Inspector, which is going to provide scans based on supported baselines, such as common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CIS benchmarks. It'll also look for security best practices that are common to industries all around the world. It'll also take a look at behavioral analysis to give you a good view of what's happening across your system. You need to understand the shared responsibility model. Again, we're not here to teach you these pieces, but you need to know where you are responsible and where AWS is responsible. What is security in the cloud, which is your task, and what is the security of the cloud, which is where AWS takes over. It's important to know that for different services, different elements may or may not be in control of your team. For example, operating systems. In EC2, you're in control, but for something like RDS, AWS is in control of that. Know where those differences are. Let's take a look at CloudWatch and how it actually plays out from a security point of view. In this case, let's say we wanted to look at memory consumption. Now, memory consumption is not a native element we track because it's part of operating system, like we said. Operating system is part of your domain in EC2, so how do we get that reported? Well, in this case, you can have an EC2 instance that has the CloudWatch agent installed, and that agent can automatically report memory consumption to the CloudWatch engine. Now, things like CPU, that's standard out of the box. No agents needed. That'll be reported automatically. Then you have an alarm setup, optional, that is looking for maybe CPU utilization greater than 60% or memory utilization greater than 80%. That will then fire off an SNS notification to whatever. Maybe it's an email to an administrator, maybe it's a Lambda function, maybe it's an alert that triggers an auto-scaling function. CloudWatch functions this way. CloudWatch logs, again, as you talk about from instances that have the CloudWatch agent installed, can take those logs, automatically push them into a log stream that can be grouped together for aggregation. CloudWatch events looks at specific changes that happen inside your AWS environment, that can go ahead and take the rules that route those event data to the proper targets. Targets within the service are going to actually process those events so you can take actions from them. Let's take a look at processing your logs in AWS. There's a lot of tools in play here. To begin with, Amazon Kinesis. This is the workhorse. It's going to be used to collect, process, analyze your data. The great thing about Kinesis is it handles real-time streaming, real-time processing. So as you look for quick incident response, Kinesis is your go-to element. There are different flavors of Amazon Kinesis, depending on what type of work you're doing. For example, if you're just talking about ingestion, you've got Kinesis Data Streams and Kinesis Data Firehose, each with their own individual purpose. Or if you want to do real-time analytics, then you can use Kinesis Data Analytics to handle that as well. So as we compare Kinesis Data Streams with Kinesis Data Firehose, there are some key differentials. Now, Kinesis Data Streams starts out with the data producers. This can be your web applications, can be web servers, mobile devices, whatever they are. Those producers then are dumping data into Kinesis Data Streams. Now, the great thing about Kinesis is it handles multiple shards that all work in parallel. This is how it can handle massive throughput. And those shards read those data records from the producers and then write them into the streams. The consumers then take those streams and process them however we need. Maybe we're doing actions with them. Maybe we're just storing it into Redshift or S3. But the great thing is then Kinesis takes it, parses out the stream in near real time. Data Firehose is more geared around getting content directly into storage, not using that interim analytics part. We still have the first step, which is the data producers. Same data producer we use for data streams. That data goes into Kinesis Data Firehose, which then takes care of all the buffering, concatenation, and then batches the content, compresses it, and pushes it into our final storage units. Once it's there, then we can apply our BI tools or analytics from that point. Speaking about analytics, it's important to understand Amazon Athena that allows you to run queries on data that still lives in S3. Now, the advantage here is this is serverless and can actually handle cross-region queries all in the same action. The great thing about Amazon Athena is you do not have to load the data or aggregate the data. It can handle it in its native format right in S3, and it also leverages Presto and Apache Hive as part of its process.